Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. How are you doing, guys? I hope you are well. It is 9:15 and I'm on, subhanallah. I've been wanting to jump on for a while because I have a really important topic to talk about today. I hope you are doing well. Let me know if you are joining me, where you are joining me from. Hashtag replay for those people who catch up on the replay later on. Now, today, as the title suggests, I want to talk about something that is a very common cause in marriages, a huge problem that is happening in our communities, in our societies, and it affects all kinds of communities. It's the Indian community, the Bengali, the Pakistani, Malaysians, you name them, subhanallah, they all there, right? And this is a massive, massive problem that is going on. It can destroy your family, and it can really mess things up if you don't have the right principles in your mind and how you're going to start this. So people actually get this wrong all the time. Yeah, and let me know in the chat below if you can resonate with this. I'm talking about how do you sort out the conflict between, say, for example, your family on one hand, because we're told that you should do everything for your parents and die for your parents, and your parents are really important, and I'm not denying that. Your might be your mom, your sisters, your brothers on one hand, and the other hand is your spouse, your husband or your wife, and how do you deal with that? And that's very complex. Now, I've dealt with numerous examples with previous clients, whether they are Pakistani, Bengali, Indian community, with really difficult and complicated matters pertaining to the in-laws. And what are the issues exactly? How do you sort out the conflict between your family on one hand, your mother, your brother, father, etc., sisters and brothers, on the other hand, your spouse, yeah, your husband or your wife. You've obviously got allegiances, yeah. Your parents are your parents. What do you do, subhanallah? And obviously, we have our deen, we've got our religion, and we know that the deen tells us that you've got to be very good with your parents, but at the same time, now you're married, yeah. So you can't break your family at the same time. You don't want to hurt your parents. So this becomes really hard. Yeah, the siblings, it can become a really tricky situation. How do you sort it out? And you know what? The actual solution to this problem is very, very simple. Yeah, the Quran provides pretty clear solutions for this. And the solution in the Quran is, if you look at chapter 4, verse 135, it says, "O you believe, be upright, standing with justice, even if it's against yourself, or if it's against your parents or those that are close to you." Now, that's the first thing, and this is repeated elsewhere as well. Yeah, so you must speak the truth even if the person is close to you. So, and for example, if there's injustice that has happened, you can't side with injustice. It doesn't matter who, for instance, I don't know, your spouse stood up to your father, or in an extreme example, he stood up and he tried to hit your husband, or your father did this, or your husband is walking in the street and he sees your mother and she doesn't even give it the salam and doesn't have the courtesy. And there's these are actually smaller examples, but there's really detrimental issues going on in our society and in our community, and it makes it really difficult. Now, if you're a husband, yeah, and we see this happening very commonly with mother-in-laws, yeah, the mother-in-law, basically, just say she's your mom, yeah, she's bossing around your wife, okay, so as if she's the husband altogether. And this happens a lot in our cultures, yeah, and in the world as well. Now, the mother, she's bossing around the woman and telling her to do this, don't do this, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can shower here, you can't shower here. She might even swear at her, she might even become aggressive, passive aggressive. She might do all these kind of things. And the guy, the husband, is just sat there and watching it happen. And he's like, yeah, but she's my mom. What do you expect me to do? I'm sorry, but subhanallah, you're a protector. Yeah, if you're a husband, you're a protector. You're meant to stop that injustice from taking place. You can't just say, what do you mean? What do you expect me to do? This is wrong, subhanallah. Yeah. If you're allowing your wife, to be humiliated by your parent or parents or siblings, and you're not even getting involved, you're not saying or any words of justice, you're not fulfilling your responsibility as a man. And I know this is a really tough one. Yeah, you're not fulfilling your responsibility as a man. So the point is, the number one thing is that you have to side with justice. No one's going to deny this. So if some injustice is happening, at least say that. I'm not saying that you should go really crazy against your parents, yeah, and destroy that relationship completely. I understand that, subhanallah. Yeah, but at least stop the injustice. Come on, whoever sees an evil, we're told that, we're, as Muslims, we're asked to do that. If you see an injustice, let that person change it with their hands. If you can't, talk about it, speak up about it. And if you can't do that all the time, you at least hate it in your heart. And that's the weakest person, who hates it in their heart. So, long story short, subhanallah, you have to make your position clear as a man. Yeah, and you have to tell your partner, your husband or your wife, yeah, usually your wife. Now, a lot of the times it's quite common that it happens with the woman, but it can happen the other way as well, or it might happen that you're from one certain community and your spouse is from another community, and you can have clashes. There's culture clashes, there's family clashes, the expectation clashes. There's so many things. There's living life the way you want clash versus living the life that your in-laws want you to live, or the perfect in-law, son-in-law, or daughter-in-law, right? So you have to, if you're a man, you have to make your position clear as a man, as a partner. And you should tell your husband or wife, that, you know what, my position on this conflict is that it is injustice, this is wrong, and I sided with you not because it's you, but because this is injustice. And what siding with you against my parents, or my parents, because it's not because it's them. I'm siding with you because of the fact that it's injustice in the first place, subhanallah. Yeah. And then ideally, the husband states that to his parents and says that, you know what, I'm siding with my spouse. You can reframe it, it can be said in a different way. Just, I absolve myself. Yeah, self. I absolve myself from the injustice. I free myself from the injustice that you guys perpetrate towards my partner. And if it's clear now, there's going to be issues, and I'll caveat all of what I've just said, yeah, because there's situations that are more complicated than that. I know it's not as clear as that, and it takes courage, it takes guts, to have a stance. You're gonna probably upset somebody, yeah, but subhanallah, you can't have someone is bossing the other one around and swearing and doing all this and doing all that. Yeah, some situations can be more complicated, but where it is more complicated, becomes more complicated. It's been happening for years. So many women live in silence for years. Yeah, because we're told that to be a good wife, you should be like this, you should be submissive, you should be easy to talk to, you should please my parents, you should do this, you should do that. Yeah, of course. There's a certain extent, yes, I agree. To maintain ties, that's important. You share your food, you visit, you do all the things, and you should do them things. It's no doubt it's a good thing to do, but there's two sides to the story, yeah. And if it's more complicated than this, yeah, then you have to refer it to somebody higher. You have to get somebody involved who has knowledge. You don't want to go into you have to get the right Islamic position on it, and who's doing what, and who's on the truth and who's on the falsehood. And it becomes very clear, subhanallah, by asking many people of knowledge what's truth and what's falsehood. Now, all of this, by saying this is different from the question, because people get confused that, no, you need to obey me. No, she doesn't need to obey you. Not when you become unjust. Who is worthy of obedience? For example, for a woman, her household, is it the husband or is it her parents? The answer is the husband. Yeah, that's a different type of question. There's consensus on that in our deen. Yeah, subhanallah, there's no doubt about that. That obviously it is about obeying your husband, and you should be, and etc. But this is not an issue of obedience. We're talking about conflict resolution. We're talking about siding with the truth. Yeah. We're talking about oppression. Because frankly, no one can use the obedience to talk about or justify one's oppression. Yeah. Otherwise, your wife would have the strongest argument. So you can't use the obedience card as a husband to override all the complicated issues. If you've done injustice, then your wife doesn't need to follow you with that injustice. Okay? Let alone obey you in that. Hierarchy, as the narration says, yeah, Islamically, we're told there's no disobedience to the Creator while obeying the creation. Yeah, or no obedience to the creation and disobedience to the Creator, where somewhere like that. So, what's the problem? What's the solution? The problem with this is that we've got complex relationships, and sometimes we can get stuck in the middle, subhanAllah, whether it's your parents or your siblings, or your spouse on the other hand, and it can be very difficult. But if you set a precedent, yeah, and you've always sided with what you consider to be the truth, then both these sides, yeah, your parents or your spouse, both these sides of the equations, they're not going to play about with you. They're not going to try and pull your strings and do all of that, because they know if you mess around, yeah, you're not going to have the luxury of being obeyed unconditionally. Yeah. There should be no unconditional allegiance to any human being. Yeah. There's no unconditional allegiance, especially when falsehood becomes part of that. Yeah. Or injustice becomes part of that equation. There's no unconditional allegiance. And I think a lot of people get into this framework that, yeah, she's my mom, yeah, it's my dad, yeah, it's this person, yeah, I know it's that person. But are you doing what is just? Are you doing what Allah has required from you? you know so you have to, and that's your answer, and that's the solution to the in-law situation. That, subhanallah, what would you do? You have to act in truth and justice in itself. you know so let me know in your comments, what are some of the scenarios you've come across with in-laws. Has it been with you? Has it been with other people? Who has it been predominantly? Is it the mother-in-law? I get tons and tons and tons of cases, and it's to do with the mother-in-law. There's always a huge power dynamic between the mother-in-law and the daughter-in-law. Is it the father-in-law? It could not be either one of them. It might be the sister-in-laws or brother-in-laws. So, what's your spouse doing about it? Subhanallah. So, the simple answer to this question, yeah, is that there's no unconditional allegiance, and you do what Allah has stated, and the Quran provides very clear solutions to it. You stand up towards justice. Whether that's your mother, or your father, or your brother, or your wife, or your husband, you speak the truth, and that's how you know you're doing the right thing, because our communities are ripe with all these things going on. So let me know, subhanallah, what are some of the situations you've heard? What cases do you come across? What do people say? Who's worthy of obedience? Would you obey your husband in that situation, when the mother-in-law is treating you like that? What would happen? What would not happen? So let me know in your comments below, and I will be over and out. That's it for now. It's nearly my bedtime. So have a great night. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.